Hey Naman, how you doing?
Hi Arjun, good afternoon and welcome to the Gist Talk Show.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for having
We are
me. I love the fact that you got your tie and shirt, and I feel so underdressed.
not at all, not at all. Trust me, this is all good. I'm glad you're here, and and I'm super happy that we were able to do this on World Music Day.
Thank you, thank you. Likewise.
So what's up? What's been up? What's your day looking like, and what's life
Oh,
been like during this amazing time that we're going through?
strange, I'd say is the best way to put it. I've had time to practice music that I haven't for more than 10 years now, which is
Oh my.
possibly the only upside for me. Beyond that,
Okay.
it's scary because the kind of industry that we're in, the kind of work that we do is under severe threat for God knows how long. But
Right.
we're just trying to stay positive and keep the mission alive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I believe you were up till 7 a.m. today morning preparing for your own
Yeah.
live session that's scheduled for today evening. Tell us more. Please
Yeah.
tell us more about it.
Oh, I decided to, I just assumed that, video editing is easy because why not? And then I
Hmm.
realized that it isn't. So last 2 days I've been learning how to work with, Premiere Pro and sort of creating like a lecture. And
Right.
20, it takes a lot of time. I newfound respect for all my friends who sort of edit video. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it took a while and also to get all the animations up and going for the class. So normally we have music every day, and especially on World Music Day every year in our clubs, we have like a crazy like music
Oh
bonanza.
yeah, it's like a
Um,
fiesta. It's a fiesta.
yeah. So, but this year we decided that let's try something a little different. As everyone is sort of pushing music out online, we said
Hmm.
let's do some education. So I've prepared a small class. It's like a 18, 20 minute primer on how to read and write music because I know a lot of our
Oh
patrons,
my.
obviously, like non-musicians, don't know the language of music. So always
Hmm.
happy to sort of share that with them. And then for a lot of the musicians, also the younger musicians who are playing in our club who haven't yet had the time or the opportunity to study music theory, this 20
Yeah.
minutes will get you oriented in how to read and write music. And honestly, reading and writing music is really simple in the Western classical music, framework. It just takes time
Hmm.
to become proficient. Yeah.
Very
So
true.
a
Very
couple of
true.
people are saying hi. Let me quickly say hi to them. Hi
Please,
to Ronnie,
please, please.
Yashi, and all. Yeah. Hi guys. I miss just meeting people, man. I grew up a hermit, like books and video games, but
Right.
5 years of running jazz clubs completely changed me. Like I love that interpersonal connect that you get when you sort of interact with people. Just
Very
like
true.
you know, yeah. Anyway, it'll come
It's
back
a
in some
pain.
way.
It's a pain sitting at home after the social life that everybody developed, and especially
Yeah,
musicians and people who are involved in
yeah,
live entertainment.
yeah.
It's positive energy, and it's not been there for a while now, and it sucks. It totally sucks.
It
So
it
let's
does, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it totally does. And we're going to dive right into the first question which I have planned for us today. And let's talk about, the beginnings of your musical and entrepreneurial journey. So let's start off with your musical journey. And how did you
Right.
discover your calling towards music, and how were you introduced to it?
Like most of us, growing up, we had some modicum of a musical instrument at home. Some people had like Indian instruments like harmoniums and all. Some people had those
Hmm.
tiny little Casio keyboards,
Right.
my finger is larger than those keys now. Like, but it's the same thing. And I used to sort of run around the house. I don't come from like a music background in the sense, nobody in my family or in my extended,
Right.
no, yeah, we have in the extended family, but nobody in my family is a musician.
Hmm.
And I would just run around with that little keyboard, and like if you allow me a second,
Please. Yeah.
I'm gonna yeah, I've got this beautiful organ over here.
Oh, wow.
But literally, like one of the first tunes that I started playing was just listening to stuff on yeah, as we all do, right, as kids, and that's the
Yeah.
music we heard on radio. TV, though, I think Thani when we were like really young.
Okay.
So it's just that my father, especially, I think he wanted to be a musician, but he never had the opportunity. He's very musically inclined. He's got a phenomenal ear. So he always pushed
Hmm.
me towards music. So it was this big keyboard, then this big keyboard, then a slightly bigger keyboard.
Right.
Then I
And,
remember I
and
got
did
my first digital piano.
did you get any kind of formal training on keyboard
Yes,
and how
yeah.
to play?
So when I started, I mean, it was by ear. Then I had somebody who came to the house for a year and a half to teach, and that
Uh-huh.
didn't go too well because, and this is the problem with like unstructured musical education. You don't really know. He was a super sweet guy. I'm still really fond of him. He's a wonderful human being, but not very knowledgeable, especially when it came to piano technique. So I
Right.
actually
Right.
developed a cyst over here because of bad technique, and it took me 2 years to get rid of that, of
Oh my God.
proper sort of training. But my real
Yeah.
musical journey, education journey, started when I started studying with John Raphael at the Delhi School of Music. And that's also a crazy
Oh
story
wow.
because when I went to the Delhi School of Music, they had this little like interview sort of thing. And by that time, I had memorized like the basic C minor blues scale, the pentatonic blues scale. So I was just like playing all over that, feeling like a boss. And then he started playing something, and I was like, oh my God. Like, also the arrogance of youth, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Hell yeah.
and then he assigned me a teacher, and I went for one class. And
Hmm.
DSM has that the quarterly payment system, right? So you pay for the
Right.
semester.
Yes.
And then I went back to him after that class. I went back to the principal's room, John
Hmm.
Raphael, and I said, "Sir, I only want to learn from you. Otherwise, I've paid for the semester. I'm not coming back to the school." And I left. Arrogance of youth, and I didn't go back. And then I got a call from him saying, "I've cleared some time for you, and I'm going to take you on as a student."
Oh, lovely.
And this happened like a month or 2 months later. I went, and there was a notice on his door, uh, some medical emergency. He basically had like a triple bypass. So he
Right.
was out of action for another couple of months. When he came back, he called me, man. I mean, just imagine one of the most incredible musicians in the country, so humble and so down to earth. And that's like my first life lesson. He called me to say, I'm back. I've got this time for you. Do you want to start your classes? And that's the reason I'm a musician today. It's because he made the effort. So I'm eternally grateful. And
Wonderful.
I
Yeah.
was with him. I was with him for almost 18, 19 years till he
Quite
passed away a few years
rarity.
ago.
Quite rarity. I think people and proficient teachers and proficient mentors. I guess he was more than
So
just a teacher,
important.
and
Yeah.
uh,
Oh, for me,
only.
yeah, he
Yeah.
was everything for me. Yeah. He was my idol. He was my mentor. I looked up to not just him musically, but as a human
Hmm.
being.
Right. Right. It's people of a certain caliber, I guess. People of a certain kata who end up doing this. It's not everyone's cup of tea. You try doing this in any other private school, and now they'll be like, "Jao, yaar." Maybe okay, not in this situation,
Uh, yeah.
but yeah, that's amazing. So okay, so you started classes with them, and how did the musician in you develop? During this time.
So the first few years were really aggressive development because I was super excited. First, I was learning from
Hmm.
somebody who I really loved, and
Right.
he was just an extraordinary musician, right? So the benchmark was already so high.
Right.
So I really pushed myself. I was in. I played a little bit of. I started with classical music entirely, and
Hmm.
I really did the really dumb thing of jumping several grades at a time. So,
Huh.
I ignored theory for a long time, but in my second year, I was attempting to play, Franz Liszt, the Hungarian Rhapsody Number 2, which is
Okay.
it's a virtuoso piece. Like people study for 15 years to play it. I still can't play it properly, but the fact is that because I forced myself to do like really difficult pieces,
Hmm.
I sort of assimilated technique faster than I
Right.
would normally have if I followed the usual progression. And
Hmm.
it was Yeshu's online. I love Yeshu, man.
Hi,
Yeah.
hi, hi. So we call him Yeshu, sir. Huh.
Acha.
Yeah.
I actually only, surprising that he's been on the scene for so long, and I've only gotten to know him more recently, last couple of years,
Right.
actually the last year since Gurgaon opened. And then I actually got to know him as a photographer before I got to know him as a musician.
I
But
got to know
he's
him through
incredible,
his
man.
students first. Ki Yeshu sir hai, and he's like an establishment. I'm like, oh, okay. And I had the opportunity of meeting him once or twice, and then we saw his photographer avatar also.
Oh man,
Amazing. People do in
stunning.
this country, what
Yeah,
people do in this industry, it's amazing. I am so inspired by so many people.
yeah,
It's great.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
So yeah,
so that
please
was
carry.
no. So that's essentially it, right? I actually I wanted to learn jazz as
Hmm.
a primary sort of desire, but in fact, if I remember right, right in the beginning, my teacher made me
Hmm.
play a transcription of "I'm Beginning to See the Light." That's I think the first standard that I actually studied.
Hmm.
But he kind of wanted to keep me. So he had this beautiful way of teaching. He'd always keep me hooked in, but
Hmm.
push me towards classical music because he wanted me to develop technique.
Right.
And
Right.
he did it so skillfully. When I think back, I fell in love with classical music. Like I love classical music today. I'd sit and listen to it. Bach, Chopin, Liszt. I love. And so he also helped me develop that taste and love for classical music.
That's
So,
amazing.
a little bit of jazz, then went into classical, spent a few years studying classical, and then back into. I used to hate Bach, man. Like, it's just, what is this nonsense? Today, for me, Bach is just. I
Right.
mean, I just wish he was around and improvising on jazz standards today. He would be like the most
Yeah.
incredible.
With age and the more music you're exposed to over time with age, your musical
Yeah,
taste develop in you, and you end up consuming something which you wouldn't have, earlier in the time.
yeah,
With regards to this, I have just a question, just a normie kind of a question, noob kind of a question. For musicians who are starting out, do you think, I mean, a lot of institutes will start off with grades, but I know
yeah.
some teachers and some schools who would expose students to jazz pretty early on. Do you think it's the right thing to do? Because, like I said, and like we just inferred, it takes time to be able to consume that kind of music and to understand it. And maybe some prodigies and some kids can consume jazz and understand the beauty and the technique behind it at an early age. What do you think?
I think you should listen to everything you can, because it'll, at the subconscious level, it's always training your brain. I grew up listening to music from all over the world, and I think that possibly was my first. My father worked with Maruti, and he traveled all over the world selling Maruti vehicles, right? But whenever he came back, we went to some 97 countries or 92 countries, and whenever he came back from a new country, he came back with, he didn't bring like chocolates and toys, he brought art and music.
Brilliant.
And when me and my brother were kids, we were like, what the hell is this, man? Like, we don't want this shit. But we were constantly listening to this music, and it was training our brain. Yeah. And when
Awesome.
it comes to, I just clarify that though I studied classical music, I never studied it formally. I've never given a grade exam from that,
Mhm,
the structured environment. I've never
mhm,
studied grades as grades. I've obviously
mhm.
studied the material that comes across these grades in terms of theory and sort of practical application.
Right.
But structured education is necessary because for a lot of people, they don't have the discipline, or perhaps they're unable to find the direction to take when they're studying. Um, but for the people who are self-motivated, especially in those early years when when you're a kid and you have nothing else to do, and it's something that you can really devote a lot of time to, I found it a better for me, or faster track for me to just aggressively absorb information. I mean, that's the best way
Right.
to put it.
No, I think we got a couple of comments coming by
Yeah,
Ramaja. He says it's not in our
yeah.
culture, but yeah, people need to explore more. Agree with Arjun on that. And he says, screw grades, screw the grade system.
Well, I don't say screw grades. Like I said, everything is useful and it creates an environment for understanding. And structures are, for most people, structures are very important because it's easy to get
Right.
lost. Okay, what should I do next? Where should I go? But at the
Right.
same time, you should be flexible enough to, but you have to be self-motivated. If you want to step
Yeah,
outside a structure, yeah,
especially for kids who come from families who are absolutely not related to music, and the kid has
yeah,
talent, and the family is actually just
of course.
thinking of initiating this as a hobby for them. The disciplined structure makes the students grow the right way,
Yeah,
especially for people who have no idea how to go about music. Even I didn't. I
absolutely.
come from a
Yeah,
family with no musician. I mean, I was privileged enough to hear Pink Floyd, Beatles, Kenny Rogers when I was growing
yeah.
up, thanks to my parents. And that's how I started my form. And they started, and they used to be very strict about the fact that, bhai, let's not just get him any kind of classes. Let's get him something, any kind of
Yeah.
structured education. You got a very big point on that. I agree with that. So many people do lack the
Yeah.
discipline in their
But
growing
even
up.
like today, if you talk to some of the, like, I'm constantly talking to friends of mine who are incredible musicians.
Hmm.
Guys like Paddy or Sharik or, some of
Hmm.
these incredible piano players, Ron. And, you reach a point where they've studied and they've assimilated so much data. And today, if you go to them and say, hey, how did you think of that? And they're like, you know what? We weren't thinking in terms of chords or voicings, or we weren't trying to play this or that. We just heard the sound. And now
Hmm.
our technical training has reached the point where if we hear a sound, we can replicate the sound. So
Exactly.
that's why technique is important, right? It helps you convert thought to action,
Right. Yes.
effortlessly and fluidly.
Very
And
well.
obviously, then it's a decade of learning that helps you think of what you want to hear, right? Like, do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, if I
Yes.
want to
Yes.
visualize, if there's the kitchen foodie is saying something. So if you're a chef and you want
Hmm.
to create a new dish, you got to visualize it first. You have to imagine the aroma, you have to imagine the flavor so that you can start working towards it. Same thing with music. If you want to improvise, if you want to create a tune, you have to be able to visualize it before you can put it out there.
Very,
And
very well
that's
said. Yeah. I'm so glad you did say this. So tell us, after this kind of a growing up environment where, yes, you had training in music, and though it was not structured, you started off with a teacher here. How did you traverse into a completely different territory, that's being an entrepreneur,
so.
and get into the hospitality industry?
Yeah.
It's the two different things.
Lots of weird steps in life. So music was never a career option simply because I loved jazz once I started listening to it, and
Uh-huh.
there was no opportunity. I'm talking about the late 90s, early 2000s. I got
Right,
out of school
right.
in 2002, right? And there was the music scene was pretty much RSJ. Like there was
Yeah,
nothing else on the scene. Yeah.
I can say.
कुछ नहीं था
Yeah.
वो था और jazz yatra था, which was like my holy
Oh
grail of
yes,
like the event
yes.
I used to look forward the entire to the
Yeah.
entire year. So, you know, when I was I took science in school and engineering after that, and the
God
plan
bless
was
you.
to, yeah, no, I loved it, man. The idea was all
That's it.
right, and my parents were like, yeah, undergrad ke bahar jana is super expensive, which is a fact, and it's not worth the
Mm.
money. So do
Right.
your undergrad in India, and then for your masters or something, you can apply for a loan, get a scholarship, and go. And that was my plan. I was actually, okay, I'm going to finish my engineering and then I'm going to either do an MBA or I'll stick to the technical side of things because I love that.
Mm.
I actually got a couple of job placements in my third year interviews a year before graduation. I never went for any of those jobs because by the time I finished my fourth year of college, I was like, yeah, dekho, I started
हो
coding when I
गया
was in class 6, 7. App tech classes hoti thi,
है. Mhm.
you had this institute AppTech where we used to teach you Java and C plus
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so when I was like in class 6, 7, I got my first computer, which was a second-hand computer from a tenant who was living upstairs when he left India. So I went
Uh-huh.
and I studied all these languages, which were super like it was really far ahead of like my peer group because they started studying these
Yeah,
languages like in college.
yeah.
So by the time I was in my fourth year of college, I was like, okay, I'm done with coding, man. I've been coding for 10 years and it's not interesting for me. I don't want to sit at a desk the whole day.
Right.
And similar, at the same time in school, I started my first company, which was called TechSol. And the first thing I used to do was import like biometric hardware and write some time attendance software for it for like companies. And I never had the money to turn that into a business. I did a couple of installs, in fact, like in Bhutan and stuff, not even in India.
Okay.
So it was just like a weird space. Through my college years, I was working with different companies. I worked in a call
Hmm.
center. I worked in a scientific instruments factory in Chandigarh. I taught piano in Bhutan. I did like a whole bunch of like really weird random stuff. I
Hmm.
sold simulator software and hardware for this company
Hmm.
called Ferris Simulation Systems. So a bunch of like different things just to learn.
Very
And
different. Yeah.
just and I've always loved doing that because and that's the best thing I did is experience all these different things. Because by the time I was in my fourth year of college, I was so far ahead of my peer group in knowing what I didn't want to do. Because I tried so many things.
Hey,
I was like,
that's
"Dekho,
that's
ye nahi karna."
that's
Yeah.
that's kind of that's very important knowledge. Yeah.
It's very important. It's very, very
Yeah.
important. And
Yeah.
so I eventually joined this uh, uh, Apollo Tires ka company, Apollo International Limited, I think AIL. I've forgotten the full form, but it does like international trading and stuff. So I worked with them for a
Okay.
few months on a
Hmm.
couple of projects, and then it was not exciting for me. It was a great team, nice people, but it wasn't exciting for me. I was like quite, it wasn't
हो गया. हाँ, मतलब हो गया मेरा यहाँ
yeah,
पे.
because through those college and these work years, also I had set up my first band, Soap, with Michelle and Gaurav Chintamani and Sid Mathur and Srijan Mahajan, and we used to play like blues. So it was going to work or going to college, then going to somebody's house for rehearsal, then going for a show,
Lovely.
getting home at 3 in the morning, getting back to either college or office at like 8, 9 in the morning, and
Right.
there was a very imbalanced level of satisfaction. So then I quit the job, and I had a year or two of just trying to figure out. Under Texol, I started doing some other work, import export on my own,
Mm-hmm.
through some of the people that I met over the years, at the Indo Africa Conclave or wherever else. And yeah, man, it was a funny time now that I think about it. But at the same time, this was 2006, and that one year was just trying to figure weird stuff out and playing a lot of music. 2007, I got a
Oh.
scholarship to go and study music in Boston.
Oh
And
yes.
that for me was also like, it was, a very important moment because it's the first time I went to the US. I had never been to the States
Mm-hmm.
before. And once I got there, it was an incredible environment because I was surrounded by musicians from all over the world. So this project had three musicians from six different countries. So we had India, Mali, South Africa, Ireland, Brazil, and the US. So we had 18 musicians, like there were four from the US, 19 musicians, and we were living and breathing music, and not just music, like American culture, burgers and pizzas and rampant alcoholism, and like
Lovely.
hanging out at Wally's, this really cool like institution in Boston, which was right next to where we were living. And that was a lot of fun because I'd never had that kind of an experience, and it really broke me out of my shell as well because I still preferred not interacting with people. And I came back. It was a short course.
I find that very hard to believe that at some point in time you did not like to interact with people.
I mean, I've never been bad with people in the sense because, like, again, my father was in exports and, with Maruti, and we had people coming home all the time, and I loved entertaining. But I preferred my video games and I preferred reading. It was always the. I still actually am the majority of times, or at least in equal proportion of times, where I wish that I would just be playing Civilization.
All right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So let's dive right into your venues and let's start with the flagship property, the one which started the change and started the revolution, and as marketers call it,
the brand
disruption in the marketplace, in the Delhi pub marketplace. Let's start with that. I can say that very clearly. Okay.
Now, so but you know that we had a Piano Man before this, right?
Yes, I'm aware, and it was in Priya Complex, Vasant Vihar.
Yeah. That was a little cafe.
And there was like no liquor and no meat.
Yeah. Madu landlords.
How do you run an F&B? How do you run an institution which is supposed to be entertaining? We have those rules.
It's interesting. My father called it the fire test.
Might as well use it as a showroom for your dad's export business, yeah. I mean,
no, it's not his business. Yes, Maruti.
Oh, sorry.
It's not even... But that's the thing, right? When I sat down with Dad to discuss this, and he said, "This is the fire test. This is the best way to test if your ideas and your brand work, because with these limitations, like you literally shoot yourself in both your feet and go for a race." So if you can still find people who care and like your product, then we'll figure out how to take it forward. Otherwise, it's time to find a job.
Right.
So that was that. But yeah, so let's talk about the Jazz Club, which was where the meat began.
The ideology and the concept behind the Piano Man Jazz Club Delhi during its planning stages. You set up a place with incredible restrictions. How so? And you had opportunity to think of, okay, this is what my ideal place needs to be like. What were those thoughts, and what did you have in mind when knowing that I need to open it in a better place and in a better location?
So I'll tell you context for this, how the Jazz Club came up, because the idea didn't start developing till the very last minute. We had that cafe running in Vasant Vihar. We had a small cafe running in Gurgaon. Both of them we had taken loans from friends and family to set up. And we, at this point, started facing a lot of problems in running the place in Vasant Vihar. So we had an option, which is exit, take a job, pay the loans back, take a couple of years to do that. Or if we feel that the brand is already sort of, if there are people who understand what we're trying to do, then we jump all in. And again, like I throughout my life, I'm really fortunate to have the parents that I do, because they've supported like every decision that I've taken. So my father's like, I think this is something that's worth pursuing. Let's do it once with no restrictions. Let's do it whole full heart and soul. We put like all our chips in the bucket. So we actually took out a massive loan. We envisioned the place. We started looking for properties. We had to obviously try to find something that was a little reasonable from that perspective in the South Delhi market. And then we said, all right, how would we like to go about it? So, just from scratch, we sat down with 7-8 different interior designers. We ended up settling with the guy who was the most expensive of the lot, but also more important than how expensive he was the fact that he understood exactly what we were saying. So we tried to find people to partner with us for the different stages of development of the project who knew exactly what we were trying to do, or who understood what we were trying to do. So Pushkar Thakur, this close friend of mine who did the logos and stuff, I still remember I asked him to do it. And Pushkar, for the last years before that, had been doing all my logos, and he never charged me a penny because he knew I had no money. And this time I insisted, I said, just like give me a huge discount, but like let me sort of pay you something. But he started working on this, and he didn't tell me anything about it. I told him the name, the Piano Man Jazz Club. He said, fine. And it's like 2, 3 weeks, and I'm like, hey man, do you have some ideas? What's happening? He's like, I'm working on it. And then one day he calls me up. He's like, Aja. I was like, यार मेरे को phone पे photo खींच के भेज दी. He said, नहीं, तू अभी आ. So, we had started construction and stuff, and I went running across. He said, this is what I've done. And I saw it. And the logo that you see today is the first draft of the logo he made. We've
Oh,
never made a
wow.
change to the logo. Like, I saw it and I was like, I was floored. It's so gorgeous, right? So to find people who can contribute, Amit, the interior designer, Amit is another genius. Then Gaurav Chintamani, that he's somebody most of the people who are online will know. Gaurav helped me out. We brought a bunch of different music systems when we sort of made the shell of the place. And then we brought a couple of music systems and we tested them out. So Dad was there, Gaurav was there. We played a lot of the 11s and tried to see what sounds good. But the entire evolution and the building of that project was a labor of love. From every brick that went in, we were living on the site, constantly there trying to figure out, Acha, how do we optimize that? How do we optimize this? Then when we started buying the equipment, everyone is like, yeah, musicians will bring their own drum kit and this and that. I said, nothing doing. I want every heavy piece of equipment to be in-house. I don't want anyone to be moving things around.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
I want all microphones to be in-house. I want high-quality cables to be in-house. I want a decent mixer. So we just started. We budgeted for all this, and we ran about 30% over budget. But yeah, we fortunately already had an upright piano. I already had a keyboard.
You created your own standard. You basically handcrafted your own standard, and you stuck by it.
Yeah. The best thing is that we didn't have any reference point, right? We weren't trying to be this or that. I had really not been to any, barring 1 or 2 jazz clubs in New York. I hadn't traveled enough to have seen more jazz clubs, so I didn't have a reference point there. So it was just like, okay, I'm a musician. When I go to a gig, what do I want?
Right.
And that's how we built the club. And then we learned, obviously, there were a lot of mistakes made, which we learned from. And in Gurgaon, we kind of get up a notch.
So we're going to go into Gurgaon in a bit, but I want to ask you, when you had set up and all this planning, had you already thought of the fact that you're going to have live entertainment every day of the week?
Absolutely. So actually, we started with 5 days a week. I had kept 5 days a week of music, one night for comedy, and one night for movie screenings. I wanted to screen old musicals, MGM musicals and stuff, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. But when we started, we found a couple of things. Firstly, like comedy nights were turning into a nightmare for us because we had the comedy crowd coming in on other days. Yeah, on other days and expecting comedy. And then arguing with us on why we didn't have comedy on other days. And we had the music crowd coming in and saying that, hey, we expected to find music every day because, it's called the Piano Man. So we realized that this is not the right time to sort of, though later on we do a lot of sort of mixed media, but we decided to keep every night dedicated to music so that there's a consistent message in the market. If you want to go out today, you don't know where to go and you like live music, you don't have to think about it. Just come to Piano Man. There'll be great music, there'll be great cocktails, there'll be great food. It's going to be like that. And that was the idea behind it. We wanted that to become the thought process. Aaj music sunna hai, chal piano mein jaate hain.
I'm certain that 100% of this entire ulterior motive was achieved. Everyone who's been to the Piano Man, everyone who's played at the Piano Man, and anyone who's heard of the Piano Man hears these things. It's a fact. It's absolutely correct. And what stood out the most, and which I have to say, you can correct me later on, but as far as I'm concerned, the artist first approach was initiated by you guys in NCR. Okay.
So we coined that term later. Like we didn't call it the artist first, but as we had decided that we're going to have music every day, we had also decided that music will take precedence over everything else.
Right.
And over time, we've become a little lax in the sense because you can't always be extremely aggressive. But for the first 6 months, I was super aggressive with customers in the sense that if you talk, I would just walk up to your table and say, shut up. I'd say it politely. I wouldn't say shut up. I'd say, listen, guys, sorry, the musicians are here to play. You have to listen. And I'd stay polite as long as the customers were polite. Like if people are polite with me, I'll always be, whether I have to go to the table 50 times, I'll go politely. But the minute somebody gets arrogant or like, I'm like, boss, house ka chale ja, and I've maintained that, some people who've been pissed off that I've ticked them off, but remained like, you know what, let's have a conversation about it. I'm always happy to do that. And some of them have become some of our most diehard sort of patrons. But the idea is that we felt the need to create filters um, simply because we feel that people have lost that patience and the desire to absorb. We find that there's a need to refocus and to allow people to absorb something comfortably. And once you allow somebody to do that, once you give somebody the space to do that, the way they respond and react is totally different. So today, what happens after we establish that as a rule in Piano Man is if somebody's talking loudly, it becomes more or less an automatic filter. A lot of people around them sort of turn to them
Yeah.
and they're like, hey,
Yeah.
because that became the culture, right? And the same people would go to other places and be super loud and noisy, right? So
Right.
I don't. We're all a product of our experiences and environments. So I don't. I always love to give everyone a chance. The parking lot guy Mukesh, often like especially if there's Bolly Jazz or somebody's playing, he comes in from the back and listens to music for a bit, and I love it, because that's how you
Yeah.
spread culture. Everyone is welcome all the time.
Very well said. Very well said. But in those times, to have the artist first approach, when the pub culture and the way pubs treat and interpret musicians, I think it was a luxury for all of us and for all the musicians who got a chance to get on stage. And I just want to think about it. What was your conviction behind it? Yeah, because you're a business owner. At the end of the day, it's business. Your business doesn't earn revenue. It's problematic. So what was your conviction? कि नहीं मैं तो artist first approach लूँगा, till I reach a place where it's people understand it without me having to tell them about it.
I didn't know any better. There's no other way to put it. Like it was the only option. It wasn't
Touche.
a debate. It wasn't. It's like, man, if I'm creating a venue and I'm not respecting the artist, then it's a disservice to myself and to the people around me. So we just it wasn't an option. Like that's the only way to go.
Brilliant, yeah, brilliant. So tell us about any major roadblocks which you came across after the establishment started off, and the process was in place, the restaurant was running, bands were playing. So any major roadblocks which you overcame, and overcoming those roadblocks made you a better business owner and the Piano Man a more desirable place to be at?
So, this is the thumb rule of life. It's the big roadblocks are usually not the ones that derail you. It's those little stumbling blocks which sort of put you off course. And of those, there are many. Obviously, if there was a major roadblock, the biggest roadblock I've ever faced is what's happening today, right? This is a black swan event in economic terms, right? And there couldn't be anything that's bigger than this.
Right.
But once you're actually running the establishment, the problems that you face are small operational issues. Like, for example, finding teams of people to work with us who understood what we're trying to do. Extremely difficult. Finding managers who would understand our philosophy. Extremely difficult to do. So we had to train them. We had to sort of train them, and that training process also meant that we had to run through people because every time you take in a batch of people, there'd be some who understand and some who don't. So then that filter has to happen in 6-8 months, which makes staffing a very complicated task for us. Hey, Abhay. And on the other side, then Delhi is also a very difficult city to run a business in from the compliance perspective, from the regulatory perspective. I'm not going to go into those details because I want to open something. But like it's tough. Like it's difficult to just be and do your work.
Right, but it's like you said initially when you were so hard and fast about the fact that the artist first approach was the only approach you wanted to take and hold them in front of the people's faces, and you have people. We know how Delhi audiences are like. We know what Delhi audiences are like, which want to go out and
that's the misconception. Delhi audiences behave like they've been conditioned to behave.
Right.
But you and I are Delhi audience, man. All the people that are online.
The Piano Man as an establishment had eventually seasoned and educated audiences how to behave like when an artist is playing. So you got to give yourself some credit for that.
I mean, again, because there was no other option for us, right? So it's not a matter of credit or no credit. It's like ऐसे ही काम करेंगे हम, and then we'll figure it out. So, and that's what we did, and the response has been great. I think one of the major problems that we actually faced over the last year is that the place became reputed to be super busy and impossible to get a place in. And we find these cyclical patterns where everyone in the city says, yeah, jagah nahi milti, and suddenly we don't get any customers. There's a huge drop in attendance. And then people start coming in, they're like, oh, how do I get a seat on a Friday night? And then it'll start picking up again, and then it drops again. So in fact, one of the things that we've been doing in this sort of lockdown period is trying to figure out how to create a more systematic way of reaching out to people. And obviously, like we've been like this is something we've been thinking of for 5 years in Safdarjung because it's a small space. How do we improve service efficiency? These are the kind of roadblocks that affect business significantly, and that's what we're working on.
Right.
Sorry.
You have a question coming from Dhruv who says, if you're taking questions, what are your thoughts on the music scene during and after the pandemic? Dhruv, this is a very important question which we will ask Arjun in the coming few minutes of this conversation. Till then, let's get into the Piano Man, Gurgaon. You know, according to me, I walk into that establishment, my mind is blown. The first time I walked in, first very time, I couldn't get my eyes off the stage, the way the entire area was designed, the way the audience seating was designed. You know, it's like an opera house almost in my limited knowledge. And there was a first floor and there was seating there and the entire grandeur of the place. I was taken aback. And would you say that the successfully running the Piano Man in Safdarjung led you to, you know, taking this decision that, okay, Gurgaon needs a Piano Man?
Yeah. So there were a couple of reasons why we decided to expand. So the first thing is that, like I said, you know, we're completely debt funded, and we were trying to bring in money to remove that debt because it puts a huge burden on your peace of mind and operations just to be paying kishti every month and sort of knowing that, you know, it's difficult to sort of grow. So, but every time I sat down with somebody for funding, they'd say, man, Piano Man to tu hai, and you can't expand because you need to be there all the time. And I said, well, that's not how business works. I know I'm there all the time, but I'm there because I love the place. I'm not there because I need to be there to keep things running. Like my team is trained. Artists come in many times now. If I'm sitting and working in my room, artists don't even know that I'm there till I come down later after the sound check or during the sound check and say hi. Right? You know, things are clockwork and they need to be clockwork. What's important is that if you're to take what we want to do culturally and we really want to make it significant, we need to be present across the country so that we can start creating our own tour circuits for artists so that we can also try to do more. But I kept facing the same roadblock where every time I sat down with somebody for funding. So eventually we said, screw this, we'll take another loan and we'll just like do it ourselves. So we did that. We had the credibility of already running a place. And in Gurgaon, this was, we actually started a project in 2017 and we had a major sort of, I would call that a major roadblock. And we lost just so much money in that there was a time when like I couldn't get out of bed because I was in such a sort of bad mental state. It took me it actually took my mother to come to me and say, and you'll understand why I'm so attached to my parents. Obviously they brought me up, but things like this. I was finding it difficult to get up and get to work. I was finding it difficult to do things. And she came to me and she's like, what's the problem? I said, we just lost like so much money. That's the problem and I don't know what to do. So like, what's the worst case scenario? We'll sell the house, we'll move to a smaller house. Why are you worried? I mean, it was that little bit, I'm like, here I am not going to work or I'm going to work in this like destructive mental space. And my folks are just like, how does it matter? Like we're here. Like, and that really, it shook me up. I was like, that's not okay. Like, you know, I need to be more responsible and I need to get my shit back in order. So then it was like a mental switch and I went back into, you know, okay, now what do we do? Then we looked for a new place and we started setting up again. So we actually spent months setting up that first project. We were 3-4 weeks away from launch. We lost everything, all the materials we put into place.
Same location or
no, it was a different location in Gurgaon. If it was the same location, we wouldn't have gone back in, right? Then you know, we were already in touch with the guys at 32nd. They wanted us to come in earlier as well, but at that time the project was very nascent and we didn't understand how we could sort of fit in.
Would you mind divulging the reason for your losses in the previous property? What happened?
You know, ethics play a big part. The people we were working with.
They all
I just don't want to go. It's a chapter that I've put behind and I don't want to get into. Right? Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's done and dusted, and whatever was lost is lost. It's time to sort of regain it.
Okay.
So we started talking seriously with the 32nd people, and then, you know, this property right on top of that little tower that they have was perfect, right? Because it was this beautiful oval with a really high ceiling. And when I saw it, I was like, okay, I can visualize. And you know, the current plot of the things that you see actually comes from our first conversation in that space. Me and Amit, the designer, and my father. And Amit's like, okay, and that one side had a flat window. So I said the stage should go in front of that because that's the only flat window. And okay, and this is then how we can build a mezzanine. And literally, I went back, I quickly drew out something in terms of the spatial arrangement of things, not the design, but just the spatial arrangement. And then Amit took over from there and sort of designed it deeply. But like things like technical things, stage and stage design, all that, I drew all that out. Acha, I need it to be this high. Acha, ispe sab itna high jana hai, so it needs to be so many inches over that. It needs to be filled in. Then we grouted all these passages to build our stage boxes and stuff. So little
Yes.
stuff like that. How we're routing all our wiring and stuff. And we learned a lot from the Delhi property simply because I was always there for the first like 4.5 years till Gurgaon opened. So I had a lot of learning, every day what are the issues we're facing. So it was fun. So we used all that learning to build the Gurgaon place. And then Amit said, okay, every product we build, every property we build needs to be exponentially more advanced than the previous one. And I was like, sure, but how? And well, that's how. that's how. So a lot of like I trust the man. I'm fortunate enough to be surrounded by people who I trust quite a bit. Guys like Amit and Pushkar and Chintamani and Manoj. Man, Manoj is like my rock. He's our partner chef, and he's the guy who kind of like just whatever he says goes. Like
People would take it, and their thought process would be like, because Arjun has already run a property for 5 years, the Gurgaon opening must have been a smooth sailing process, but it wasn't.
No, it never is. And in Gurgaon, like I remember, man, we did a preview on International Jazz Day, right?
Right.
We were supposed to open Abhay Rathod. I'll tell you the story about the trumpet chandeliers. I was originally opposed to the chandelier, by the way. I thought it would be very garish. Then Amit said, trust me, and I trusted him. And then the second one for Gurgaon, then we said, okay, let's up the game.
Yeah, it's lovely.
But coming back to the Gurgaon, on World International Music Day, International Jazz Day last year, we did a preview. We were supposed to launch, but we didn't get the liquor license and stuff, and the finishing also wasn't done. If you had come to the club, if you had come to the property 2 days before that and you looked at it, you would have been like, हाँ अभी तो time लगेगा थोड़ा. So what we did is, if you actually look at the details of even our church pews, for example, the seating, they weren't there, like they hadn't been made yet. We didn't have any furniture. We just opened with a couple of chairs, but we just like quickly सब चीजों पे polish लगाओ, ये करो वो करो, टक whatever's not finished, just glaze over it. And we did that preview, and nobody realized, I don't think anyone realized that this is not the property. Yeah. And then we sat and finished it up. The day we were launching officially in June, I remember I went in the morning at 11 o'clock and there was like Kata PT going on. And I was like, hey, we're launching in 1 hour. And I just lost my shit. And that's a habit that I need to get rid of. I'm still working on it. I'm prone to like just going from 0 to 100. Yeah.
Vested in business on a big emotional level. I get it. But
it's something that I'm old enough to like grow out of it now, which I'm much better than I used to be. But I just went from 0 to 100, and I kid you not, if you had seen the transformation of the place in that 1 hour, you would have lost your shit. I got there are 5 people like spray painting stuff. We are rebuilding the ceiling at one place. There's like it was crazy. Yeah, it was in 1 hour we got that place cleaned up. And yeah,
wonderful.
And that's the thing, like you said, when you walk into the place, the feeling that you have. Fortunately, I have it every single day.
Wonderful. Yeah. I miss it. I miss playing shows. Oh my God, I miss them so much.
Hey,
I miss audio.
Abhay Prey is here, and I haven't texted him yet. I've called him yet. Abhay Prey, happy birthday, man. Thank you. Abhay Prey is one of the most beautiful people, a very critical part of our team. And man, he's quite a guy. Yeah.
Okay, happy birthday to Abhi Prey from everyone over here. Arjun, why don't you go ahead and tell us a story about the trumpet chandelier?
Oh, that's simply it. Originally in Safdarjung, when we were trying to figure out how to fill the space, Amit recommended that we put in a chandelier. Okay,
yeah, I just remember like Chandigarh में chandelier होता है ना, दिल्ली में chandelier होता है.
So so Amit is like, let's put in a chandelier, and I was like, boy, nahi, it's not gonna happen. It's too garish, and I like things to be subtle.
Hmm.
My design elements and stuff. He's like, you know what? Chal thoda ghumte hain. So he took me to MG Road. There's a store there called Ivanko or something. Ivanka. It's a
Hmm.
lighting store, and they had this brass trumpetish. Like it wasn't actually trumpets. It was just like a abstract brass chandelier. And I looked at it and I was like, mm, and it was like 3.5 lakhs or something. I was like, bhai, na paise hain, na maza aa raha hai. It's not happening. So we were in the car, we were driving back, and he's like, "Can you get me trumpets?" पता करता हूँ कितने चाहिए. Said, "I'll tell you." We find out. So I started looking around. Dad started looking around. We found like a whole litany of like these brass manufacturers in Meerut. Fabulous.
Hmm.
Yeah. I was like, हाँ मिल जाएगा. And I checked the price. It was like 1,500 rupees for a trumpet. Cool. हो जाएगा, चल जाएगा. बस अभी है. Called him up. He said, "Cool." Then he sent me a message. Acha, get me 60 trumpets. I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, get me 60 trumpets." So we did that. We got him 60 trumpets. It still cost us a lot less than sort of
Yeah,
buying
yeah,
the
yeah.
ready-made thing. And we actually built both the chandeliers were made on site. So
My
the
God.
trumpets were carted in cartons. Gurgaon was a different. When Gurgaon came
Hmm.
around and he's like, "Acha," I was like, "Acha, ठीक है, 50-60 trumpet फिर से चाहिए होंगे." He's like, "नहीं, मेरे को यार तू 250-300 trumpet लाके दे दे." अरे यार ये मतलब धनिया खरीद रहे हो ना. But again, like the trust factor is so high that we didn't question him. We just, okay, sure, let's do it. Gurgaon,
Yeah.
we had a major budget fuck up with the trumpet,
Hmm.
because we didn't factor the cost of the bulbs. In Delhi, we used regular bulb use करे थे ना. उनका तो, I mean, it's like 40-50 rupees a bulb and 1,500 rupees a trumpet, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
In
Right.
Gurgaon, we hadn't planned the Harman lighting system, the Martin lights. So we didn't
Right.
have a
Right.
lighting system in place, or we hadn't thought of it, and we were using the
Oh.
trumpet as a lighting source, right?
So you needed
So
brighter bulbs. Yeah.
so we wanted to put color controllable bulbs, so we decided to put Philips Hues, and that's
Okay.
like $4,500 a bulb.
Oh my God.
It's
No,
three
no,
times the
no, no.
price of the trumpets. So
Oh my
that
God.
chandelier ended us costing an arm and a leg because of the bulbs. And then eventually we put in the Martin lighting system and we don't even use the. Yeah. But yeah, so now we use it for like, Abhiprey apna lighting console, he does this like spotlight on like the drummer's
Yeah.
doing something, there'll be a spotlight and all the house lights go tuck. That's through
Yes.
that, imagine 255 bulbs into, and plus all the recessed ceiling lights and everything, they're all Harman Hughes. Sorry, Philips
Right.
Hughes. Imagine that into $4,500.
Yeah, but this is the only stage in Delhi NCR where you can have, acts of all kinds, and even, the differentiation which you've done between the Piano Man Jazz Club in Safdarjung and you call this the Piano Man in Gurgaon,
Yeah.
and the fact that you cater to more, music genres, and the fact that if any big international artist comes to Delhi, they automatically know they have to go to. Initially, it was the Piano Man Jazz Club in Safdarjung. Now everybody knows the best stage is in Piano Man Gurgaon. It's fact. Find me another property in the NCR region which has a similar stage, similar offerings, similar service. You won't be able to.
No, but this
And
is the
this
thing,
means
right? So
yeah.
both the stages we like to, for me personally, I'll tell you how I think of them. For
Please.
me, the Delhi stage and the Gurgaon stage are apples and oranges. Because the intimacy that the Delhi stage can bring is next level.
Oh
You
yeah,
can't
absolutely.
you can't get that on the kind of on a larger stage. And the production that the Gurgaon brings is incomparable. So I
Oh
always,
my God.
even when we get like international bands and we do one show in each of the clubs, I love doing that because I get to see them in an intimate environment and in a produced environment. So it's two different shows for me. And I always look at it that way. So there are certain international bands who are coming in, for example. So for the Indian bands, we have the set rule, right? Like we usually try to space a show about a month away. Earlier it used to be 2 months per venue. Now it's
Yeah.
1 month in either venue, right? Because ek yahan,
Yeah.
fir ek yahan, fir ek yahan,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah.
That's the very dhila thumb rule. By the way, when we actually started booking shows, Nikhil Morkin had joined the team, and I love Nikhil, man. His mind works in such phenomenal ways. Like he can conceptualize and think through so many different um, problems at the same time. Like the way he can combine solutions out of multiple chains of thoughts. It's like a computer at work. And when we started, when we started creating rosters and calendars, in fact, Nikhil was one of the critical people in creating the system that we use even today, in how we plan our calendars and how we sort of correlate and manage data. And it's a really smooth system. Like we have 5, 6 people handling hundreds of shows a month, like between the clubs plus in all the other hotels and whatever other work we do. It's just because the system is well designed and it leaves no room for miscommunication if you follow it.
It is
Sorry,
a well-designed system. That's all right. I want to ask you, how do you compare the audiences which turn up in Delhi versus the audiences in Gurgaon? What noticeable differences do you see in the way they consume music and their characteristics and their behavior?
I think the larger difference comes not from. I think the audiences are the same. Audiences are conditioned by the environment. If you're respectful and the respect is a two-way street, you'll have a good time everywhere. But what happens is that because Gurgaon is the largest space, people forget that we still have the same artist first approach. And because the place is so large, it's harder for me to be sort of policing the space. In Safdarjung, if you're sitting any one corner of the room, you know exactly who's talking where. Right. In Gurgaon, that doesn't happen because it's a much larger room. So it's challenging, but we're trying to figure it out. Like 99% of the time, things are smooth. Sometimes it does tend to get a little noisy, and we're still trying to figure out how to handle that.
Best of luck with that. So tell me, what other entertaining groups have used the Gurgaon stage apart from musicians? For presenting their apps. I've heard some recordings also happened, some stand-up shows also happened. Tell us a little about that.
We had Rahul Bose shoot like a thing. We've had a couple of there was some medicine for octogenarians or something. I don't know. We've given out the space for a couple of shoots. Musicians have shot videos there, of course, through the day. Yeah. We've had a lot of theater there, with different groups. With Yeshu's father, he's done some productions there. We've had, I don't know if you know Madhav.
White hair. Too much of white.
Kasturba Pandey, the play. Kasturba, the play. Okay. It's Okhla Black Box, Nikhil?
Yes, yeah.
His younger brother, yeah.
Oh.
So he's done some productions, yeah. Even in Delhi, we've done theater, man. We actually did a series of plays with Nisa from Akshara. Mm-hmm. I love theater. I acted till I got into F&B. So till 2010. 2010 is when I got into F&B. And my last production was in 2010, where I was on stage acting. So it's something that I always love doing. Okay. So and stand-up comedy, we tied up with. We started with when we were in Vasant Tihar in our original cafe, we had a tie-up. We had Rajneesh Kapoor who was curating all our comedy. And when we started with Piano Man, we sort of looked around a little bit and eventually started working with Manik Mana. And what he would do is he would, in fact, a bunch of comedians who sort of, because, when they're hosting a show, that's when they're really cutting their teeth because they're on it. They have to do those spots and they have to sort of hone their game. And then as they get bigger and bigger, so they move. Like we had Rahul and all who moved to Bombay. Rahul Duan, they were hosting our Delhi club for a long time. So, and now he's turned it over to a gentleman named Rohit, who was curating comedy for both our clubs. Of course, the comedians also prefer the Gurgaon stage to the Delhi stage because it's more viable for them because they're getting comedians from different parts of the country. There's enough seating capacity and it fills out, so it pays for the flights and everything. So, but I leave the comedy curation entirely to them. Again, I'd rather not interfere with people who have domain knowledge. When it comes to music, it's us, it's me and the team. And there's many times where the team overrides my decisions as well. They have complete authority to do so. They can say, hey, I just think we're going to cut off in a few seconds.
I have the timers on. So I'm just going to say a couple of comments. The comments are, Arjun, I'm so glad that you let your stage be used for other things also, rather than just music. The offering at Piano Man Gurgaon becomes very entertaining. Different people, and you're being generous. Like I said, find me another stage like this in Delhi NCR and I will cut my hair. Okay, I have to cut my hair anyways, in the upcoming time.
Oh shit, I got bald spots.
I cover up my but abhi people have been complaining about the fact that I have a huge forehead and I should start renting it out for ad space during these online sessions that I do. But what we're going to do is we're going to close this session because we have very less time left in it, and I want to talk about COVID-19 and its impact on your businesses and what all steps you're going to take to rejuvenate the music scene after things clear up. So let's close this session, come back for another 10-15 minutes, and talk about these wonderful things. So now that people are joining back, let's get into the question which I've been holding on to, and I've been wanting to hear this from a business owner who runs a pub and a venue. That the world has turned a very different color. Large gatherings, evenings out, and visits to pubs and bars have come to a complete standstill. So I would like you to tell us, because we subconsciously know about this, how this is affecting the F&B and the hospitality and the pub and bar business. But, how have your outlets been affected, and actions which you took, any kind of countermeasures to survive in this situation?
Unfortunately, it's all dismal. There's no good news at the moment. Also, the fact that it was such a sudden and sort of unpredictable event, and the fact that it's prolonged the way that it has, every day becomes a little tougher to sort of work with. So, in brief, the industry that we're in, or several industries from travel, tourism, hospitality, entertainment, nightlife, that sort of rung of activities, is possibly the hardest hit world over. And and I had a conversation earlier. In fact, I wrote a little note about this as well. What we did in terms of preparation is we try to visualize what's going to happen in the future. And we don't know when it'll happen, but we know that there are essentially three phases to this. There's the lockdown phase, there's the post-lockdown pre-vaccine phase, or let's call it the pre-fear phase. Because, what's governing people's action today is the fear, and rightfully so. And then there's the post-vaccine or post-fear phase. And we try to identify how we will interact or handle these three events. And obviously, how we handle them also keeps evolving depending on how they get stretched and reduced, right? Because a 1 month lockdown is very different from a 3 month lockdown, which is very different from a 6 month lockdown.
Right.
It's very different from a 1 year lockdown.
People's mindset change, their habits change, they get modified,
Yeah. So for us, the biggest problem was the complete full stop of cash flows, and we're kind of a large cash flow business, right? So a lot of outflows are depending on inflows coming in, and as soon as that happened, we were left with whatever little money we had in the bank, which also we tried to pay out salaries as long as we could, which was still last month. After which we also ran out of money, and that's actually my biggest pain point. Is I have a team that I'm responsible for, and we can't really do anything in this situation. So the lockdown period essentially becomes a period where you are bringing down your costs and your overheads to as low a burn rate as you can. Because the lower the burn rate, the longer you'll survive. And for most hospitality business, the formula is simply this. It's a comparison of capex and burn rate. So if you are a low capex, high burn, or a medium burn organization.
Could you kindly please define capex, because I'm a noob in this. Yeah.
Capital expenditure in building your product.
All right.
So if you've got a relatively low capex and a comparable or high burn rate, then you will shut down because you're burning more money than you put into the business.
Right.
If you're a high capex company which has a relatively low burn rate, then you will try to last it out. Because no matter how much money you burn every month, if you shut down, you stand to lose the entire capital expenditure. And we're in that boat, right? Because we've seen the properties; they're extremely heavy on cost.
Yes.
So we definitely want to figure out how to survive this period, however long it is. So that's the lockdown period, and unfortunately, as the lockdown period keeps getting extended, we're trying to figure out more and more ways to sort of floor our burn rate, because there is some cost of operation. There is some expectation for maintenance and rent from the landlords. There's EMIs to the banks. Even there's a moratorium, which is I think the dumbest thing on earth. You give a moratorium, but you still levy the interest during that period. I mean, you're just literally telling every single business owner to bend over, and you're shoving a cap. Anyway,
have these people,
where the sun don't shine,
who you are in, regularly have to pay rent, etc., to have they given you some kind of relief, any kind of support?
Yeah. So we're in the slightly more fortunate boat. We are talking to both our landlords in Delhi and Gurgaon, and they're quite polite and restful. Especially in Gurgaon, the conversation's much further ahead. It's still not where we need it to be, and Delhi, we're in the middle of the conversation, and we're hoping to get support, because at the same time for the landlord, if some of the not so smart landlords who pushed out their tenants across the city and the country and across the world, I think they don't realize that there's so much wealth erosion in the market that it'll be very difficult for people to start investing in building new properties,
Right.
right? So if you let go of a tenant just because you don't want to give them a few months of relief, in the long run, you might be lying empty for like a year, 2 years, 3 years. You never know
Maybe
how
even
long it
longer.
takes, right?
Maybe even longer.
Yeah, because also there'll be so many properties that are coming to the market, and there'll be a much lower acceptance rate. And even if you do get back, if you're desperate to get a tenant back, you might have to cut even a better deal for them to enter your property than you would for somebody who's already there.
Right.
And this is something that we're hoping that people talk about and understand, because in the long run, it's not just me, right? It's my entire
Yeah.
fraternity, my industry. I
That
want everyone to survive. Yeah.
everybody in the F&B hospitality space, a model which survives on people coming in,
Yeah.
spending time, and
Exactly.
spending with it. They are all affected.
And we're hearing horror stories of how places are sort of shutting down. And what people don't
Right.
realize is that a successful marketplace is a marketplace that's a combination of all the essentials that people require or want to go out for. So if you
Right.
have just a food place, or actually that also works, but in the sense that for most of the properties that you go to, most of the markets that you go to, different verticals of business sort of play into each other, right?
Right.
You go to Fab India to buy something, you'll hop across to, a Chinese restaurant next door, specifically a Chinese restaurant next door, because of the stupid statements that this government's making. Chinese food has got nothing to do with people, and please don't discriminate against people for no reason. But
Please.
yeah, no, no, not no reason. I mean, there are different things, but like,
Their
it's
own,
just sad
in
what's
their
happening.
own space.
Yeah,
Listens in their own space. Yeah.
I just, that's the other thing that this country needs to do. Like, people who are actually knowledgeable about specific things should talk about it. And I'm not
Yes.
knowledgeable about this, so I'm going to be quiet. But that's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Too many opinions and very little data.
Very
But
true.
so that's the lockdown phase. Then there's the post-lockdown,
But I have to
pre-vaccine
ask you,
phase.
within
Yeah,
the lockdown phase, I'm sorry for cutting across. I have to ask
yeah,
you, how
please.
has your relationship with regular artists, normal artists, guests, and
Yeah.
patrons of the Piano Man Jazz Club, how has that changed in this period?
So in general, like, I'm grateful for with artists, with patrons. Like, the conversations that I'm having are beautiful. They're very supportive. Everyone's like, hey, I'm actually quite embarrassed right now. We have a lot of artist payments. This is the first time in 5 years that we have artist payments pending, but we ran out of money completely. But I'm hoping, we've applied for a little bit of a loan, and I'm hoping something comes through in the next 3 or 4 days. The minute that happens, the first thing we're going to do is clear all our artist payments, because that's always
Mhm.
my priority. And I'm hoping that should be done by the end of this week. It's been 3 months coming. But
I know for a
it's
person
things
like
like that.
you,
Yeah.
Arjun, I know for a fact that this would be your top priority, and
It's
it
been
must
it's
be
been constant for 3 months. We've been trying to, and it's been difficult. The 99% of the artists have been very understanding, and especially people who worked with us in the past, they know that our payments always
right.
go out. But some of the people who worked with us for the first time thought this is just another venue doing what they usually do, and it
Let me
was.
put it on in. ऐसा नहीं है भाई.
But yeah, you can't blame them also. You can't blame
Right.
any. And the thing is that people also need the money, and it's their money.
Yeah.
When you rendered a service to me, it's your money. It's not mine anymore. So I understand that, and that's the genuine way that we think. But we're facing just a ridiculous problem. Anyway, long story short,
Yeah.
hopefully that will be resolved
Yeah.
this week. But other than that, like, what does a person do, right? My patrons are also in distress. My artist friends are also in distress. Everyone's having a tough time. But what's been universally beautiful is all the artists that I've spoken to, and that I've been speaking to a lot of musicians over the last couple of months, both for work and for just generally catching up on what's up. The positivity that the industry is maintaining is exceptional. It's really beautiful, and
And
it's
it's
very
needed.
encouraging.
Very
Yeah,
much
it's very
needed right
encouraging.
now.
Because
You
it's
know,
a
I was,
difficult time. It's yeah.
please carry on.
Sorry.
Please carry on.
I was just saying it's a difficult time, and we worry about a lot of people who are very dear friends of ours who've been, have a difficult time dealing with situations like this, and I just hope that I'm glad that there's a general air of positivity, because it rubs off, man. The environment rubs off on everyone.
It's not like we were trained for this. Nobody saw this coming. You
Yeah,
know, it just
yeah,
one
fast food.
fine day, everything just went kaput. The entire business, the entire relationship between live entertainment and the
Yeah,
dining experience, and F&B experience, and a bar experience, it just went kaput. And
completely.
I mean, last Friday, this very Friday, I was speaking to Meenakshi from Thirsty
Yeah,
Hospitality.
yeah,
She
yeah,
said that the only thing that's keeping her going is talking to people in the fraternity, and
yeah.
it's this small conversations having with big people who are now available to, talk to people and spread
Yeah.
their knowledge, you end up hanging on to two small things, and it gets you through the day and gives people ideas, on how to survive in what's happening.
I'm going to give her a call. I haven't spoken to her since this thing began. We've all been
Yeah.
like in our own zone. Yeah.
He's also like, Naman, please don't ask me doomsday like questions. We are in, it's a scary thing. And,
Yeah.
and
No, but
it's
they're important. Like the only thing that can save you from doomsday is planning, like
yeah.
and a little bit of luck. It's a combination of the two. Basically, things should start reverting to normal before you're completely flat out. Like
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I fingers crossed, everything. Yeah, I'm waiting
Yeah.
for it.
No, but then it's
You know,
different. Like so, the people who are doing deliveries and some people who started dine in. Obviously, they're not doing the numbers that they were, but they have
of
a little
course,
bit of
yeah.
business. So there's some cash flow that's begun again. But for a lot of people that I spoke to, it's not sufficient to even survive with the basic
No,
stuff
it's
that they
not.
have. And
Yeah,
for
yeah.
some people, they're lucky or they built a good delivery business and they're doing okay. Like they're managing to survive. Nobody at this day and age is going to be like nobody in the F&B industry is putting money in their pocket. But
Right.
just the fact that you're able to survive is important.
So, I think the Gist Talk Show has been around for what? The entirety of the lockdown. But I remember that the first person to initiate anything of this type was you yourself when you started off
Yeah.
your Piano Man home session, drinks at home session. So
Home
tell us
sessions,
more.
which we've got different, like, yeah.
Yeah,
So we
different.
call it the home
Tell us,
sessions. Yeah.
tell us more about it, please. Yeah.
So we realized that we have to shut down the cafes, the bars, I think around the 17th or the 18th of March. And
Yeah,
so
March.
immediately I just packed up a bunch of equipment and brought it home. And I decided to start doing these sessions. I was like, I can't sit idle. And we started with Diotam at my house. This is,
Yes.
I went and I picked up Diotam, full like social distancing spray, this, that. We got home in the garden. It was already set. He sat down, I sat down. We got our drinks out, and this was a day before the first lockdown. We actually
Yeah.
started one day before the first lockdown, so the
Very well
20th of
done.
March. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we kept it up with quite a fervorous intensity. We had 5-6 interviews a week. In fact, I think the first few weeks had like 7 interviews. We've done 60. Today is our 64th session. And each of these has been like an hour and a half, 2 hours long. And we started reaching out to musicians from all over the world, right? So we've had some absolutely mind-blowing musicians, Neil Swinson, Aaron Parks, Gilad Hexelman, Bria Skonberg. Abhipray is in fact a guy who's been sort of reaching out constantly to musicians and letting me know, okay, this person might be interested, and then I write to them and sort of take it from there.
Wonderful.
End of this month, we've got Kurt Rosenwinkel. We've got, yeah, it's pretty crazy. We've got Kurt Rosenwinkel, we've got Jason Moran. I'm almost
Oh, wow.
finalized the date, almost finalized the date with David Fuzinski, who's the founder of Screaming Headless Torsos. So we've got some really like powerhouses coming on board in the next 10 days. I think those start from the 26th of this month, 5 days.
Gotta hand it to you. Gotta hand it to you. You pioneered it, and I'll let you know a little bit of secret of this. Your streaming sessions and Abhay's streaming sessions at the Revisit Projects page, they are instrumental in making the Gist Talk Show happen. I'm not kidding. I'm like, bhai,
That's
kya
cool, man.
mast baatein ho rahi hain. They're talking about musicians, their lives, their journeys, what they do, and I'm like, wow. I love to talk. I mean, a lot of people have discovered that in the lockdown, the one thing which I've built up is my ability to talk.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad this is happening, and we're in the second season on the 8th episode on World
Nice.
Music Day. And I take this opportunity to wish you and everybody who are part of this session a very, very happy World Music Day. And Arjun said this.
Sorry,
of your
you want to
interview.
finish that conversation about the 3 phases of the lockdown? Because I left that
Please,
hanging.
carry on.
And I'm
Okay.
feeling a little awkward about it.
Because my next question is in the post-lockdown phase. So, do you want me to
Okay.
ask you the question? Then we can structure it that way.
Yeah. Okay, no, sure, we can do it that way. Because I had mentioned like those 3 phases, so I was just going sort of sequentially.
No problem. So let's. I'll tell you what. Let's work with what you were saying. Let's go about the next phase.
Yeah, okay. So the first was the lockdown, then I said the post-lockdown and pre-vaccine phase, right?
Yes.
Where people are going to be going out, but they're going to be scared. And we're seeing this now we have a little bit of data because we're seeing this in countries like New Zealand, which have done an incredible job, like I think leading the world in fighting this pandemic. But despite the fact that they sort of announced 0 cases for a period of time, The minute they started opening the market up, they had a resurgence, and this will happen, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that fear will always be there, and our fear will be for our loved ones, it'll be for our parents, it'll be for the older people around us, especially, and then for ourselves as well. I have autoimmune disorder, so I don't know how this is going to interact with my immune system. So we don't know. And my folks are in the late 60s, and I'm super
So
paranoid
you
about
must be
that thing.
taking super special cautions. At least
We've been
I
at
am in
home,
a
man.
place like Delhi.
Yeah. We're at home. There's no question about it. There's nobody coming in, and we're just at home. So, this social distancing and fear dining space is going to be very difficult to navigate. We'll be working with, if at best, maybe 15-20% of dining audiences. And the idea is how do we create a viable business then and carry it forward. So what we did is we spent a month sort of reworking how the Piano Man works. We approached it from a different perspective. Supposing I have to run the Delhi club with 20 people in it and the Gurgaon club with 40 people in it, how do I create a model that's still effective and still has music every day? And I think we found a solution where we don't compromise on the payment to the artist. It remains to wherever it is. And it creates a better experience for people, a more sub-theater experience for people.
Is this still in your pre-vaccine stage? Is this still in the pre-vaccine stage?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the idea is this is something that I wanted to do in the past as well. Try to take it more towards the supper theater. But I couldn't because, things were, when you're in the flow of business, it's difficult to make changes, especially significant changes.
Right.
So now I have the opportunity to test this out, which I will be doing whenever we decide to open. And we'll carry over some elements of this to the future because I want to improve that entire service experience for our audiences, which has dropped simply because the place gets crowded and it's difficult to actually get a drink, man. At the end of the day, you listen to music and you want a drink, you want that fucking drink. Like,
Yes.
It should be there. And I know that in Gurgaon, it's a lot better, but in Delhi, we have this problem. It's a significant problem because of the size of the space. So we're approaching it from that perspective. So we're planning for an environment where we get to test out some of these ideas to their extreme. And then we'll carry over the learnings from this to the post-vaccine phase. And the post-vaccine phase is the post-erosion of fear. And honestly speaking, we're such dumb mules as a species. And it's a fact, I include myself in that completely, that our memory doesn't carry forward. The minute we're not scared, this will become a distant memory. Like, we'll start behaving like this was never a thing. And that's a fact. A lot of people are like, oh, the world has changed forever, life has changed forever. Sadly, no. Like, there are very few learnings that we'll take from this. Our increasingly globally conservative governments are going to try to whitewash everything that's happened.
It's already happening.
It's already happening. So it's not the most it's not the best thing. Karishma's online. I would really hope that the world would start. There are some good lessons to be learned here, which can be carried forward, but it won't happen. So once we're back to that post-vaccine phase, we want to be what we were, hopefully, plus learnings from. I can't be preaching that humanity should be learning something and not doing it myself. So we're going to take all the things that we're going to be trying out in the post-lockdown pre-vaccine phase. We're going to take some of the learnings from there, and we've already identified the things that we want to look out for and implement them into the.
But you really think I'm just speaking from a different thought process here. Is I look at Meri Moti Buddhi as a person who spent exactly 6 months as a sales and marketing management trainee in ITC hotels was. There is a certain segment of people who are spenders, okay? And I'm just talking out loud that once the vaccine comes in, or even, I'm going to address both the pre-vaccine and the post-vaccine stage for live entertainment and for the dining experience at bars and restaurants. Yeah, it's going to be it's a 60-plus day lockdown. Some habits get inculcated in our human psyche if you practice them for long enough. You're amongst the first people who are saying, first entrepreneur and a restaurant owner, who's saying that once the vaccine comes in, we'll forget about all of this and the audiences will start thronging venues again. Do you think that decision makers and the spenders between the age of 55 plus, the high risk group, they will also react similarly? Youngsters, I can imagine. Teenagers, legal drinking age plus people, 35-year-olds, they will get back to it. But what about these people? The high risk group.
Watching videos. You've seen that lovely video from Paris that was passed around about 2 weeks ago on WhatsApp.
I try to avoid WhatsApp.
And all the. But there's no harm in watching. Don't make decisions based on these things. But it was a
Hmm.
really lovely video, which was also passed on our NRAI group, the National Restaurant
Hmm.
Association group.
Hmm.
You've got these Parisian streets, and all the tables are out, and the streets are filled with people who are sitting in these cafes and eating and
Hmm.
drinking. And they weren't just young people; it was everyone. Fact of the matter is that uh, 55 isn't old anymore, man. My dad's like almost 70, and honestly speaking, like if I look at the way TV portrays a 70-year-old, I mean, he's a 40-year-old or 30-year-old at heart. He still loves his Pink Floyd. He still, one of his closest friends is living upstairs right now while his house is being
Hmm.
constructed. And every evening he chills a bottle of wine,
Hmm.
pours himself a drink, sends the bottle up for his friend. And then they get on
Lovely.
the phone and they put on TV and they're drinking their wine and they're chatting.
That's so
So
cool. That's
so
so
it's
awesome. Wow.
it's silly of us to assume that yeah, okay, there'll be a new breed of hypochondriacs who are scared of like everything. At the same time, there'll be this militant breed of people who are like हमें अब एक साल के लिए घर में बैठना ही नहीं है. Like fuck the roof over our head. We just want to be outside. So I think everything averages out. As you start increasing the numbers of the people that you're polling for a result, it starts
Yeah.
averaging out. I mean, you've have you read Asimov?
No, sorry.
Okay.
Now
So
I will.
Asimov's, yeah. So wait, the Foundation series, Asimov's sort of magnum opus, talks about like the field of psychohistory where you can predict the actions of masses as the numbers
Hmm.
get larger and larger and the accuracy of that prediction increases.
Right.
Obviously, I mean he's a science fiction author and whatever else, but that's a lot of how behavioral statistics work, right? The larger the number of people, the easier it is to predict how they'll behave or they'll act or they'll respond. And
Well said.
I'm fairly certain that the variations from what we are expecting in terms of normalization will be there, but they'll be small. At the same time, like I don't know, I don't know what I'm talking about. So let's see what
No,
happens.
no.
I just
It's alright.
I read a lot, man,
It's good.
and
It's great. It's
I
very
read a lot, I
important to have.
observe a lot. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you now. See, both the piano mans are a very integral part of the live music scene in the NCR region. In fact, they're the best properties doing English and multi-genre performances and multiple other performances where the standard is high. People, both the audiences and the artists, go back happy. Now, post the lockdown period, including both before the vaccination and the cure comes in and post the vaccination and the cure comes in, it's going to take some activities and some kind of things you'll have to do to drive people back to your to places. So what all activities have you planned to reignite the scene, to get performances back on track and audiences back in your venues to watch these artists perform?
So I'm not big on fanfare.
Okay.
When we launched the Piano Man Delhi, when we launched the Piano Man Gurugram, we had we had that International Jazz Day launch party, but other than that, we just started. Delhi, we just started, and I'm actually going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to start. I'm going to put great musicians out there. I'm going to invite people and say, hey, we're back. Here's some music. Come and have a drink. I don't want it to be. Yeah, I mean, that's not my style, man.
But what about this hypochondriacs who are going to be like, bro, मैं तो नहीं आ सकता. Oh my
वो
God,
नहीं
I can't
आएंगे.
risk it.
They won't come, but there'll be other people who will be like, hey, man, thank you. Yeah, we're looking forward to some music. Let's do it. So, I've never had marketing budget, so which is possibly why I'm like this. I've never had the money to spend on marketing. Of late, we were starting to sort of create marketing budgets and start working. In fact, Disha joined our team to head sales and marketing, and she's been doing really a wonderful job. But before that, I really didn't have like a marketing resource. So obviously, she'll have some plans on, okay, I want to announce it like this. Arjun, why don't you put a video out there? I want you to do this one. And we'll do all that. But at the same time, we're going to keep it subtle. People are intelligent. We always go with the assumption that, people who are sensitive to culture usually tend to be a lot more sensitive and a lot smarter in the decisions that they make because they're thinking. And that is our audience. It's people like you, people who are listening in, who care about art and culture. And if it's presented to them, if they feel safe and they feel secure, they will come and we will welcome them. If they don't, we wish them safety and health. And whenever they're ready to come, our doors are open. Will be open, not are open.
Great. Positive words. And I'm waiting. I mean, it's like, yaar, I'm scared. I got a father at home who's of a certain age, who's in the high risk group. So do you. So do so many more people. And the way the media is portraying everything and the figures you get
Yeah.
to see, I think I'm fairly going to predict this by tonight. Delhi is going to, because of the sheer size and population, is going to become the second highest state with the number of COVID positive patients.
I mean,
I mean, that's the. But I am
numbers. Yeah.
waiting. I'm waiting for the ray of light to come through. I'm waiting for people like you to, again, throw in some camphor into the flame, which is almost out now, and get performances going and get those
Hold
moves
on.
going, swings. You know, we're looking forward to it. Any futuristic ventures you guys are planning?
I,
Up to the future?
yeah. So sorry, I'm using I have two monitors which I'm using as
Yeah.
lights. So when they go to sleep, I have to move the mouse.
It's okay.
Okay, there are two
Yeah,
questions.
what's with this? Please,
There are two questions which I thought, because several people
please
have
do.
asked advice
Yeah,
for musicians,
please.
and then Prithviraj again asked about something about, one second, I'm just looking for it. Any types of artists, and then in terms of numbers, keeping it simple would help.
Let's let's
Let's
let's
just
get
quickly
to
cover these three questions. Yeah.
let's get to
So
advice for musicians and artists in this period. What to do and what
yeah.
should they be
Okay.
doing?
So again, I'm nobody to really comment on this. I've earned zero in this entire lockdown period, both as an entrepreneur, as an artist. But I'm also not making the effort to generate a revenue stream through my artistry. I'd leave it for the professional musicians out there. What I've been reading about and what I find as being slightly effective, I think one of the better ways to try to generate an income stream if you don't have the wherewithal to sell online tickets or the capability of selling large volumes of online tickets is to set up like a Patreon account. In fact, Varun Kapahi is one of the few musicians who heard me talking about this and did the same thing. And the idea is to understand exactly how much money you need to survive. Forget about extravagances. There's no scope for extravagances right now.
Right.
You know, whatever number it is, 10, 20, 30, 40,000 rupees, depending on your rent and this and that. Reach out to the people around you, and if you have 30, 40 friends who can support you with 500 rupees a month, family and friends, it's not a lot for them. It'll be a lot for you, and I think that is the best part. And it'll also keep you on your toes, because if somebody's investing in you
Yes.
on a regular basis, it'll push you to put content out there for them. It'll push you to interact with them. It'll push you to create new things and think of new ways to engage with people to keep them interested and happy.
Very true.
So that's the thing that I recommend for a lot of people. The other thing is there are a lot of like different sites out there which allow you to connect to people that are looking for batch work, transcription services, playing specific parts, things like that. So you can always register on some of them, and they pay in dollars, which is great because a dollar goes a long way in India. So it's just
It does.
the rate of conversion is favorable. So you should look out for a couple of these sites, but again, you need to really be at the top of your skill to be able to, bid and vie for these projects. If you want, like for example, I got a call for a transcription request recently, and just a couple of days ago. And my transcription ability is actually not very good, so I immediately pass that on to somebody who I know can handle it really well. And hopefully that works out. So you need to identify these kind of projects, and there are two camps of people who are saying don't put free content out there, and people who are saying put free content out there.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say do what makes you happy. If you believe that you want to put music out there, Nikhil Mawkin, man, he's been putting out a song every single day. He's I think at day 75 or something right now. Every single day he picks a new song and he records and puts it out, and it's amazing. You should check out his YouTube channel and subscribe to it. It's got some good
Right.
stuff on it. Yeah, Fiverr. That's it. Fiverr is one of the
Another
sites
one.
that gives you batch works.
What about
So yeah,
advice for non-musicians? What about entrepreneurs and other people in life? Any things they can do to harbor positivity and keep their chins up, in these
yeah.
stressful times?
For everyone, whether you're a musician or a non-musician, the most critical thing is keeping your mind active, and that'll happen if you focus on learning something constantly. From day one of the lockdown, yesterday was the first day because of that video editing, I didn't get to it. But I spent at least 2 hours to 3 hours a day on practicing the trumpet every single day.
Can we
And
hear
it's
you play something right now, if you allow us? I know it's not like a great thing to
Yeah.
ask on an IG live, the sound quality not being
Let me
spectacular.
give me a sec. I've closed
Sure.
all my sheets and all also. But
Only if it's easy. Only if it's easy and it's doable.
yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yes, this is
I haven't
something
warmed. I have no warm up today. Yeah.
It's okay, it's all good, यार. यही सुनना था मुझे. एम्बुलेंस की आवाज सुननी थी मुझे.
Let me play. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather warm up properly before doing that, but
It's been so long since I've heard something. Yeah.
yeah, I need to warm up. I can't do it.
Thank you for that.
But yeah,
Still, thank you for that. It's been so long since
not
I've
ready for it.
And
Yeah.
so keeping yourself busy, keeping yourself occupied with things. And for musicians is get your content out there. Try to get some support systems in place. And
Exactly. Get a support system in place. All artists, not just musicians. It'll help you a lot. And honestly, that's the only way that I see that something can be done right now. Mishti Lohi, yes. Look at me, I'm.
Wonderful.
But yeah.
Right. I'm just going to ask people. We're nearing the end of this session because Arjun has another engagement later on in time. I'm going to ask people if you have any more questions left to ask Arjun or for me. Please put them in the comment section. We'll take them up.
Sorry, there are two questions that we haven't answered
there are a lot
yet.
Of questions,
yeah. Okay. Prithviraj, are you trying to call any specific type of artist? Well, not specific type of artist. We'll resume the way we used to program. You know, the thing is that I currently have a tentative booking for almost 15 international artists from September onwards, and I don't know what to do. I keep, because we wanted to be positive and assume something can happen. We have an 18-piece big band, thanks to Emma, that's coming in December, which I'm just like drooling over.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the Gurgaon stage with an 18-member big band? So we're trying to work out on a couple of these really cool
ideas. Wish it happens, yeah. Wish it happens.
Yeah, man. That's the plan. That's the desire. In terms of numbers, keeping it simple would help. In a while would cover up loss. It's going to take us like a year or two to cover up the losses because it's already 3 months and it's going to be longer. Yeah. And it's going to take a while. Actually, I can't predict. I don't know if it'll be a year or two or it'll be 6 months or a year. I don't know how the business is going to rebound. I don't know when it's going to rebound. But let's just say that what we want to make sure is that once we start business, even if it's in pre-vaccine sort of social distancing era, we want to make sure that we can sustain, like we're not burning money. Because if we're burning, we have no room left to burn. So yeah, that's how we're going to plan everything. We'll plan our staffing, we'll plan our expenditures completely based and linked to revenues.
Lovely. There's another question. There's a lot of other questions. Yeah, are boost pricing going to affect you? अभी तो वैसे think government ने खत्म कर दिया है. कोविड से
नहीं, पर उन्होंने एक बड़ी स्मार्ट चीज करी है मेरे भाई. आप देखते नहीं हो ना, अब आधी कहानी बोल्ड में होती है और बाकी कहानी स्मॉल प्रिंट फाइन प्रिंट होती है. तो वो 70% 70% सेस has been removed, but a permanent 5% VAT has been added. And I'm telling you this is permanent because it's not going to be removed. So now VAT on liquor sales has gone from 20 to 25%, and this is going to be there for a while. So this is the thing, the government will vilify, every government, it's not just the current government, every government will vilify alcohol as the thing that brings the evils to society. But when they need money, they come running to the bar owners. And
exactly.
And they don't even talk about us as a part, they don't even talk about F&B as a part of the industries of India. Right. That's what's happening right now. Anyway.
Horrible.
Abhipray, if you think about this, the best time to be innovative, create new ways to put out music, everything, that is exactly the attitude you need to have. Just try, like we're trying such crazy things. Today I'm putting out a class. I haven't taught in like 15 years and I spent the last 2 days trying to video edit a class together, for which I had to learn Adobe After Effects to make animations. I learned Adobe Premiere Pro to make the videos and edit the videos. I'm okay with recording and editing sound, so that's not an issue. Before Adobe, I was working on OpenShot because it's the free software. I realized that we have a Creative Cloud subscription for our graphic team, which I forgot about. So first I learned OpenShot. So it's great because I don't know if I'll ever use these tools again or after the lockdown. But
somewhere this is a great skill. Yeah, these are great skills to acquire.
It's beautiful. I love learning all this. And the thing is now that I've always been somebody who loves learning. So I always try to, and in fact, I did an interview a little while ago and they said, what's your mantra? And I say, people have bucket lists of things that they want to buy. I have bucket lists of things that I want to learn, and I've had it since I was 18 years old. So it has things like tap dancing. I've got tap shoes. I need an instructor. it's got caricature, it's got calligraphy, it's got, and I've worked on these things. I've got books and books filled with just sitting idle at 4 in the morning and learning things on YouTube. I wanted anything. For me, you can take any skill into the realm of an art if you refine it enough. And
Right.
that's the attitude that I like to work with. Okay, then silly question. I'm an aspiring musician. I wondered how musicians get a chance to play at TPM. Bro, you got to write to us. Artists at thepianoman.in and Arjun at thepianoman.in. Put samples of your work. So what we do is that we have a team that looks at everything that comes in. We try to be honest in the sense that at the same time, like for me, a stage is sacred. I'm an incredibly atheistic person. But if I were to have a religion, my religion would be the stage. And the reason I say that is because I have respect for the stage. So I expect, or I want, or I would desire for everyone who gets on the stage to have at least a similar kind of respect. Which means that if you're getting on stage, please come prepared to put out, because it is a performance. Come prepared to put your heart and your material out there for people. It's my responsibility to make sure that if you're there and you're delivering your love for the art, I will ensure people give you the respect that you deserve on stage. That's my job as a venue owner. And
And it
that equation
happens.
is
And
really
it happens.
important. Yeah.
It totally happens.
It's a really important equation. So work at it. If you feel that you're ready to perform, send us a video. Some people, they'll write specifically to me and they'll say, please give us some feedback and tell us if you're ready. If you ask me to be brutal and honest, I will be, well, brutal is not the right word. There's no reason not to be respectful and polite. But I'll be honest. If I think that you need to work harder, I'll tell you need to work harder. If I think you're ready, we'll give you a date. It's as simple as that. And again, I repeat, I'm not the only person who makes this decision, because I will look at everything from my point of view, and I have my preferences in music. So for that reason, we have several people in the team who look at everything that comes in, and we have the ability to veto each other's votes. If I say no, and somebody else says, I think this is really good and we should give it a chance, we give it a chance. Yashi, are you getting enough sleep? I'm not. I've not been sleeping. I'm sleeping at 5, 6 in the morning. I think it's just a combination of stress and like uncertainty. Though I'm okay, I'm healthy and I'm fine, but it's just like stress about what's happening with work. But last night was exceptional because I was working on this class that I'm planning to do. I slept at like 7:38 in the morning. So right now I'm exceptionally sleep deprived. Normally I'm just sleep deprived.
Amazing. Yeah, so we got a couple of final questions coming in with people talking about the silent sound concept at the Piano Man and how
Yes.
it makes it the wonderful experience that it is. So let's take this up as the final question. Please tell us about it and your thoughts
So
behind it.
the silent song was actually born out of frustration. There are a couple of things that led to it. In our Basant Vihar cafe, I was quite a pansy. I didn't know how to go up to people and tell them to keep quiet. And I learned that from Paddy. Because he was performing. He was performing and there was a table that was super loud. And the Basant Vihar cafe was like 5 tables, right? So one table being loud is like 20% of the club. And he was playing. And he turned to me and he said, we need to get these guys to shut up. I said, "Teko jo bolna hai bol de. I don't know how to go up to them and tell them to shut up. So why don't you say it and I will back you up." That's how it actually began. I was lily-livered in that sense that I didn't know how to handle it. And
Not
Paddy just turned
anymore.
to them and said, yeah. I mean, but that's actually that's the first memory I have of this thing. So Paddy turned to them and he's like, "Hey, I'm here. I'm trying to play some music. If you want to talk, perhaps go somewhere else." And these guys, like, they lost their shit and they're like, then I stepped in. I was like, "I'm sorry, man. That's the musician. It's the musician's choice." And they actually left. I kicked them out. Like, it was quite ugly, but it was fine. And then soon after, there was a comedy show. Papa CJ, CJ he's a lovely guy, good friend, and he did a little lecture series on comedy, and some of his students were they were coming and practicing for the first time. They were exhibiting, and this was at my art cafe in Vasant. And I remember one of them was he was doing a segment on homosexuality, and there was the material was a little rough and it wasn't politically correct entirely, but it was obvious from interacting with him and even from what he was trying to sort of justify by saying that was not the way he thought. It's just that he hadn't figured out how to sort of refine the material. His intention was not to offend anyone, but there was somebody in the crowd who just started hurling abuses at him and stuff, and got like, and that's when I was like, okay, I forcefully literally ejected the person out of the space. I say club, but it's a cafe at that point. I said, listen, there has to be some room for conversation and tolerance. If the intention, if the artist's intention was to offend, I'm not going to stand for that because that's not okay. But if it's a genuine mistake and they're immediately apologetic and they recognize the fact, then I think a discussion is more fruitful than just like hurling abuses at them. And so these one or two instances sort of helped me form the way that I wanted to treat the space. So now fast forward to the jazz club we started. The silent song actually didn't start right at the beginning. The beginning it was just me like telling people to shut up or politely or rudely or however I needed to do it. But I think maybe it was Lucia or some incredible musician was performing, and the club was too noisy, and I picked up the mic and I just went into this thing. The guys, let's just for one song, what you know as a silent song today, just started as a appeal, a request. Can we just try this? Can all of us get together and try this for one song and see what happens? And I still remember that the entire show after that was silent. And people came up to me and they were like, this is incredible. So we didn't start doing it every day. We started using it as a tool for when the crowd was noisy.
Right.
But then what happened is that as the place became more popular, the crowd was noisy every day because it was, it was full and, So
people
then
were having fun doing what they were saying.
Which is great. So, and that's also, it's always been a tricky place for me, the balance between I'm having fun and I'm with my friends and hey, there's music going on. It's a really difficult balance. It's easier in Gurgaon because it's a larger space and the sound is so much more reinforced. It's very tricky in a small club like, the jazz club. So, and so we took that as a template and I sort of wrote. In fact, I have manuals for different parts of my team. So in my host manual, there's an entire section on the silent song. Yeah.
Lovely. I'd love to get my hands on this book whenever this damn lockdown and this situation gets better. Just,
the manuals. The manuals are like 4 pages, 5 pages. I'll email them to you. It's no problem.
Yeah.
It's like I have an engineering manual on the approach to sound engineering for a live venue. I have a host manual. A couple of manuals like that.
Fantastic. Great. To all the people who are asking me to save this entire video, not to worry. The earlier segment and this segment is going to be up on my Instagram, IGTV for 24 hours. I keep it there. And I'm going to take out some extracts also from this conversation and put it up later up on my profile. Arjun, this has been a lovely session. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of the Gist Talk Show on this auspicious and courageous session on World Music Day. Thank you so much for your positivity. Thank you so much for your thoughts. We are waiting for times when we can get back to on the stage and share those incredible evenings with you and the rest of your team at the Piano Man. I'm wishing you the best of wishes and just positivity. And I hope that this thing clears up fast and we can get back to our normal lives.
Oh, for sure. Hopefully. To everyone out there, stay happy, stay positive, keep learning something. And thank you, Naman. Thank you for inviting me and thank you for this beautiful conversation.
Thanks a lot. Stay tuned. Arjun's going to go live from his Facebook page at 7 p.m. today.
The Piano Man Jazz Club page. Yeah.
The Piano Man Jazz Club page.
In fact, I can, for the people who are online. So what we decided to do is everyone's sort of streaming music and stuff. So we decided to use today to stream the language of music. So I've prepared a really short video. It's about an 18-20 minute video that will teach you the basics of reading and writing music. So if you don't know how to read and write staff notation, it's a quick primer. It'll sort of run you through it and also lead you on to some resources that you can work on this. And trust me, 20 minutes is all you need to learn the language. The rest of the time is perfecting it, which will take a lifetime.
See you there. I'm coming. I'm going to be sure a lot of other people are also going to be there. Okay, Arjun, thank you so much for being a part of the Gist Talk Show. Wishing you, your family, friends a happy World Music Day. I'll see you soon. Yeah, see you soon.
Take care, man. Likewise. Bye.